Well, hey everybody. We had a huge earthquake here in LA. I'm waiting for Dr. Darlene Sperlazza to join me. I haven't seen her in a few months. We've talked on the phone, but not on our show. Um, I'm going to check and see if there's feedback, and if you can hear me, just put a thumbs up or say, yes, you can hear and see me. I look extremely red. Oh, well, I haven't done this in a while. I had COVID 10 days ago and got back from overseas, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay, let's see. There it is. Hmm. Hello. So can you hear me? Okay. Nice to wear glasses. I had my first eye exam. Can you believe it? This many years after being born. Oh, good. Thanks, Jeannie. Jenny. Jenny Wilcox Chase. Um, so anyway, this is just a live stream that we're going to talk about good things happening in the world, despite the chaos, despite appearances. The underlying harmony of the universe is good. Believe it or not. And the minute you believe it, as Wayne Dyer used to say, that's when your reality will reflect your beliefs, your thoughts, because it's really a metaphysical universe. Believe it or not, there is not any physical matter in the universe according to the electron microscope and quantum physics. That may sound really out there, but astrophysicists have proven, and I have several friends at NASA who do this kind of research, particle physics, quantum physics. But really in our realm in the mortal realm, I'm writing a screenplay called The Mortal Realm. It's really about perception and putting your thoughts on the good, on the higher realm, above the problem. Dwelling on a problem, dissecting it, analyzing it, manipulating it, forcing it, controlling it, then you're mired in matter. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees. You're mired in the details, and the bigger picture is something beautiful that's blossoming. I talk about this a lot. I did have this strange experience getting off the plane on Tahiti Airways. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe Darlene's in the room. Hold on. I want to make sure she's able to get in. I better text her. We flew in this amazing trip, once in a lifetime trip. I haven't been to Europe since 1979. Could that be possible? No, I was there a couple other times in between. In my crazy drinking days, when ABC Network would fly me around the world, literally, they treated us like royalty back in the 80s. I went to Monte Carlo a couple times, went to Grenoble, interviewed the Trotsky secretary. I was writing this great book, The Great American Novel. Went to Barcelona alone. That's where I met you and Purvis, my good friend who passed away, the Scotsman. And I had such a fun time in Edinburgh recently, meeting his good friend, Cameron Barry. Hope Cameron's on here later. Let me just tell Darlene we're on. We do this every time we do the show. We cannot figure out the technical specifications of how to make this thing work on Facebook Live, but hopefully my banter is not boring you too much. Darlene, where are you? We are on. Okay, but it's been quite an adventure, and you can travel to Europe pretty cheaply if you save up Marriott points or points for hotels on a credit card. If you really do that, and you're really diligent about saving up your points, you can get incredible airfare, upgrades, hotel rooms. Oh, she can't get in. Is that her? I don't see her. All right, I'll send her the link again. Wow, how weird. Per usual, we're having our. All right, let's see. Sorry. Oh my God. I've had some. Oh, there she is. There she is. Yay, yay, yay. Yay. Are you there? View. Where? There you are. I am so sorry. I can never seem to. This is like a running joke. Hi. Oh my God, you're gorgeous.
Can
I
you
haven't
hear
seen
me?
you in a while.
Your speaker's on. Please check.
You're in.
My speaker isn't working.
Yeah, it's working. I hear you. You hear me?
Mhm.
Ooh, we're live.
Wait a second. Oops.
Typical Zoom. We could log in and log out again if you want.
It's not working.
Well, I hear you really well. Let's see. Test your speakers. Test the sound. You know how you do that? You go down to the microphone. Ooh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I just had to switch. Okay, this has been a little bit different. This is a Zoom workplace.
I know it's weird. They keep upgrading things, and nobody knows what we're doing. They should not do that to people over 50.
Ugh. Yeah, I'm turning 65 this year, Lydia. I've had so much work I'm trying to do for Medicare and all that. I don't even know what I'm doing.
Oh, wow. I did that a while ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to continue working. So it's like I'm not getting Medicare. And it's just a mess. I have to have something from my work that is called oh shoot, I just went through it. It's called a certificate of credible coverage because if you don't have that and you
Yeah.
continue to work past 65, they will charge you monthly
What?
for not being on Medicare.
Are you sure about that? I thought, you mean, we
No,
can.
I called Medicare. They're like, yeah, you better get this certificate because I turned 65 in like October 7th. So now I have an appointment with Social Security. I have to turn all this paperwork in
Wow.
because they said, well, you can make less than $19,000 a year and collect your Social Security. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, I'm not going to give up my job. Like,
No, 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 but I don't think that's true. Everybody's on Medicare at 65, whether you're working or not.
well, type A.
Type
It,
A. Yeah, neurotic people.
type A, because there's A and B. Part A, I should say, part A.
Little joke there.
Oy, oy. Okay,
Gotta get our humor back no matter what. We're live on Facebook right now. You know that, right?
that's good. Maybe other people have something they want to say about Medicare too.
In fact, a
Like,
lot do. I keep hearing this from everybody. And I went
yeah.
through it, luckily because of my union, SAG-AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists and Screen Actors Guild. They merged a few years ago, but my original union was AFTRA. So all video shows done on live camera, sitcoms like Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Too Close for Comfort. We were all done on under the contract of AFTRA, that union. So my residuals are all there. And AFTRA is so generous. They said, we're going to give you your Social Security in advance, the max you would get if you retired at 65. We're going to give it to you 5 years in advance,
Wow.
plus part of your pension. And it was like a lifesaver because as an actor, especially as a woman, you go up and down and you don't work for a while. And I
Yeah.
was,
Well, it's been eye-opening, and I apologize to anybody that's listening on Facebook if I came in like ranting.
oh, it's
But
great.
these are real life situations. This is where a lot of the God shots come in too. So it's kind of like yin and yang. But
Yeah,
I
well,
never, ever thought that people had this much difficulty, like trying to process getting older. I mean, getting older in itself is a process.
yes,
And as you said, especially for women, I think, glasses, the way we look, or the dynamics of relationships change, a lot of things changes, right? And now a system that you've been paying into for 40 years, you have to go through all of their hoops to, and it's really, I'll tell you what, it's hard for a woman, and it's even harder for a widow, an elderly widow.
Oh, I know.
It's terrible. What
It
these
really
women are
is.
going through is terrible. And if this is a platform where anybody wants to talk about that, I mean, I would love to be an advocate, because I'm like, as a nurse practitioner, I had no idea how difficult this truly was.
Oh, I'm so
And
glad you're talking about this. This is a topic for today. It's really important. Aging and
yeah,
feeling, not just as a
less
woman,
than.
but too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Real
it's a very
quick,
important topic.
I want to get back to that right away, but you just reminded me, and I don't want to forget. Um, I got some really nasty, critical, horrible comments from people looking at a photograph of me, and they said she looks too fake in that photo. It was an old one that I didn't even know was, my website hasn't been updated since 2013. So someone picked that picture off the website and like, she looks great for 71. And it's hard for me to even admit my age, but I've
Yeah.
got to start admitting it out loud. Like I told you, it's taken this year to do it. Because in my industry, you used to be blacklisted if you aged past 35. I told you before that Reuben Cannon, the casting director, I walked in his office when I was 35 and he said, "You look pretty good for an old lady." So, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's a tough business for women, and it's gotten better and better and better. We're slowly breaking those doors down. But these critical comments, these men and women started saying she looks way worse than that in real, if you look at her new picture, and they would pick the worst picture they could find that TMZ put up when I had my stalker. And it's like under harsh lighting, it's almost like they drew in the wrinkles. And I was moving or turning and making a weird face, and they caught that picture, and they used the reject picture to go with the stalker article. And I got hate mail back then, and that's 10 years ago. Someone said she's so ugly she should have her face bashed in by the stalker, because
Wow, that's cruel.
the headline,
That
they went and
is so
got my
cruel.
restraining order, and the headline was psychotic stalker wants to bash my face in. Then they put a horrible picture of me looking crazy. And the haters wrote, she's so ugly, she needs to have her face. But what kind of society are we living in? Then I had to relive
That's
it again last
that's
week.
another segue that we could get into. I mean, it's been a while, and let me back up for everybody that's listening for 1 minute, because there's a couple things I want to congratulate you on. First of all, 30 years sober, big deal.
Oh,
Awesome. That is so awesome. Good for
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Um, I've learned in my journey that it's not, you know what, for those people that are listening, they're like, oh, yeah, so what? Well, it's not about that you have strung enough days together to say, I'm sober for 30 years. It's the spiritual journey that takes place during that 30 years. And it's just amazing, right?
Everything.
The person that you were and the person that you are now. I mean, everybody changes in 30 years. I get it. But when you're on the spiritual path, it's just amazing, like being rocketed into the fourth, fifth,
Our
sixth
dimension.
dimension that you don't even know exists, right? And I want to talk about some of those things today with some godshots that we're going to discuss. But
Too.
congrats to that, because that
Thank
is just
you.
a really huge deal. That and the picture I got from you in Paris, I'm jealous. I'm
Like we were
jealous.
in Paris. I mean, and
I
I,
was seeing Tom Cruise in Paris, like watching like the gymnastic part, and I'm like, he didn't even remember to invite me.
oh my
I'm
God,
kidding.
Paris.
There was a lot of celebrities there, which was nice,
Yeah.
nice support.
But
But
real quick, on the 30 years, I have to celebrate that because it is amazing. My son is 30. He doesn't even drink, but I mean, I had a catastrophic crash and burn, and I was a radioactive suicidal. I was on the verge of suicide when I first walked in the room of a 12-step program and simply surrendered. And that changed everything. And you're right, no matter how bad life gets, I've had some. This past year has been a year I call from hell, but it's been a gift. I just got the lesson in it. I'll tell you about that later. But by staying sober, which means staying out of the fear and worry, working a spiritual program, surrendering every day, and having faith in a power greater than myself, it's actually a miracle that I'm still alive and walking and talking and smiling and having some joy. So all of us have the choice to do that if we really want it.
I agree with that. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
I'm
Yeah,
grateful.
and it's just, and you know what, it's like, I know that part of our conversations here in Godshots and how we met and all that was through recovery. And, you know, I've learned through my journey that there's not just one way. There's multiple ways to get to a spiritual path. You know, there's different religions, there's different groups and organizations, there's a lot of different things. My way happened to be the 12-step program that has really basically saved my life. That was me. That, and you know, Lydia, if you remember back to when we first met, our very first phone call, when you had started reading my Godshots website,
Yeah.
and you might not remember this, but for anybody that's listening, so one of your questions to me was like, I didn't know who you were. I didn't know you were an actress. I really didn't even know your name. We had just started talking because you wanted me to take my site down.
Yeah.
And I still laugh about that. And I remember the words that you asked me because you said, "Are you in recovery?" And I hesitated responding. I almost lied to you because I thought, oh, who wants to admit that? You know?
Yeah.
And now I look at that as what a gift. I didn't know you were an actress. I really didn't even know your name. We had just started talking because you wanted me to take my site. I laugh about that. And I remember the words that you asked me because you said, "Are you in recovery?" Yeah, sure. I didn't know you were an actress. I really didn't even know your name. We had just started talking because you wanted me to take my place. I laugh about that. And
Oh. Oh my God, what happened?
was it a live stream?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry. Something happened with the sound. I had to shut off the actual Facebook part. Keep talking. We're still on.
So anyway, so I almost lied about that because you know sometimes we feel that when something happens, like you end up figuring out that you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or an overeater or a sex addict, whatever it is that is your deal, because everybody has deals, right? Gambler. And when we figure this out about ourselves, it's like embarrassing some way in the self-esteem ego part of us. It gets real embarrassing. But what I have found that my greatest blessings came when I learned to be honest.
Oh God.
You know, I was made who I am for what I'm made for. I don't know what that is on any given day. It happens when it happens, and it's all in my higher power's time, which I choose to call God. So we'll just call him God for me. But, and I have learned that when I just give up myself every morning and say, I say a prayer, something very similar to this. God, take me where you want me to go. Have me meet who you want me to meet. Have me say what you want me to say. And for heaven's sakes, keep me out of the way. That's it. Because, you know, it's like real easy for me to try to get in the middle. And I just need to stay out. And when I do, beautiful things come my direction. You know, just like really immensely beautiful things. So, and you're one of those.
Such a gift in my life. You really are. You're a gift. And I'm so grateful to have met you. And I'm sorry for the long hiatus. I really had some weird stuff happen this year, but it was really all internal. And you manifest what you think about all day long, you know.
Yeah, you do.
Fears can become kind of in the mortal realm. They become a little bit real. And then it always leads me back to this beautiful path because that's a spiritual journey. Not everything's perfect. It's rocky at times. But I want to hear what's been going on with you. What's been really going on with you? What are the godshots? I want to hear that.
Let's talk about that a little because you know it seemed like I had a whole lot of godshots that happened, and I created the website and I was writing about them, and it seemed like it was happening daily. And then there was kind of a lull. And when you're used to getting those godshots and it's exciting and it's fun and they stop coming, it's like, okay, I don't like this. Like, I got to get back. And so I went back to doing what I did in the beginning. You know, I was getting on my knees in the morning, starting to pray again, starting to read the Bible again, starting to go back to a little bit more meetings. I'm sponsoring lots of people again. You know, I kind of taken a little reprieve from that. There is no reprieve from helping people, right? You just don't get to do that. So I'll give you just a couple. I mean, to me, they're huge, but one of them was the man I see, as we've talked about before. He lost his granddaughter in an accident. She was a twin, and one of the twins got killed by a car at the age of 8. tragic. I'm not sure you ever get over that. And it kind of just is haunting. And for people that are listening that have had to go through the death of a child or a grandchild, it can be incapacitating. You just can't seem to get beyond it. And so the whole family was kind of just in that motion, right? And so when I was out in Minnesota, the last time I was out there visiting my son, they have a beautiful Catholic church out there by the name of St. Michael, because they live in St. Michael's, Minnesota. And I'm not advocating for any religion or church or anything, but I'm just saying that's what I do. That's where I found my peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have been doing a lot of praying for that family and praying for the spirit of that young girl that was killed and asking for guidance. Like, how can I let them know that she's okay? How can I help them see that there is something beyond what we see in this material world? Like, there's a very fine veil between here and there, and our loved ones really don't die, they just change, right? How do I get this across? And I was praying about that. So that afternoon, my granddaughter and I went to mass together. She's 9, and we were running a few minutes late. So the ordinary place I sat in that church, it's a very large church, is right in the center. And because we were running a few minutes late, we kind of went in a side way, because I just thought, I don't want to be like obnoxious right down the center aisle, right? And when I sat down and I knelt and I closed my eyes, and I'd already said multiple prayers about what I just said to you. And when I opened my eyes, there was this beautiful floor length stained glass window, like from the floor all the way to the ceiling. And I looked at it and it was beautiful. And in the top of that was a saint's name. And the saint's name was Saint Sophia. And Sophia was the little girl's name. And I, in 40 years of Catholicism, did not know that there was a Saint Sophia. I had no idea.
Wow.
And it was my sign without a doubt. I went back to the car after mass, got my phone, came back in, took a picture, and I have shared that with the mother of the daughter that died. I've shared it with Rob, and each one of them got their own consolation from hearing that story, because I'm not one to make things up.
No.
But like I said to them, I didn't plan that. I wasn't looking for that. I didn't even know there was such a person. So to me,
that's what I call a godshot, meaning an uncanny synchronicity.
exactly.
That's it. It's sometimes the most soothing, beautiful things appear in whatever form you most will receive them. For you,
right.
In a church. For me, a butterfly sometimes. Some of the weirdest things happen with nature. Oh my God, I love that. I got chills when you said that.
Yeah, so that was one thing that's happened recently. Another thing was, and this is why I always tell people, my best thoughts are really not that great. My best thoughts usually get me into trouble, right?
Sure.
So there was one night, this has been a couple months ago now, that there was an event going on in a city close by where I live. And the event was like, eating on the streets and, vendors and just parties, being able to walk around with open containers and bands and stuff like that. And for some reason, I really wasn't keen on going. I just was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It was going to be crowded, a lot of people, all that kind of stuff. But so anyway, to make other people happy that wanted to go, I kind of like conceded my thoughts and my wishes. And I said, okay, I'll go. But did I really want to go? The answer is no. But I get there, I'm walking around on the streets, and up to me comes this woman that I have not seen in 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Last time I saw her, I was just getting sober. She comes up to me, she gives me this big hug. Surprisingly, I remembered her name, because she's not somebody that is in my life on a consistent basis. She remembered my name. I remembered her name. We started talking. She asked me about recovery, told me she was ready, asked me to be her sponsor right then and there.
Really?
And she has about 2 months sober now, is working on her 4th step, and is loving life. Her whole life has changed. Done with the booze, done with the marijuana, just bam. She was ready. But I was there to like kind of be her lift up, And so I thought about that, and I thought, how many blessings do I miss when I take my will and say, I don't want to go there, I think it'll be boring, I'm not going.
Oh my God. Me,
Right?
a lot. All the few years before this. Yes. Wow.
So things like that have been coming at rapid fire pace for me again, which is very exciting to me.
I love it.
Yeah.
See, by
Yeah.
you saying that to me, it verifies everything I've now, this whole week has been a theme of the week, is stay in the present moment. Stop worrying about getting to somewhere where you can get more achievement and accomplishments. It's
Mhm.
being here now and enjoying this day. And somebody sent me the other day, oh yeah, Denise David Williams sent me a beautiful Eckhart Tolle talk about it's not, this earthly life is not about accomplishment and achievement, it's about discovery. And that is only in the present moment when you're deep into the present moment and enjoying the person you're with, enjoying the food you're eating, enjoying the sky, enjoying the people that you want to help, enjoying sharing your experience, strength, and hope, and staying present rather than worrying about what you're not doing, didn't accomplish, that thing you want. The word want means lack. So if you want something too badly, you're pushing it away. You're not going to get it because you're never there. And the gap between what I want and where I am right now, it can close by simply appreciating the present moment. But I had to learn that all over again this year. And when
Really?
you just said it, um, you said it in a different way, but it really resonated with me. It's like discovering what life is really about. Because if you think about it, I used to say this I knew to say it intellectually, but I didn't really feel it. That Academy Award that Nicolas Cage won for leaving Las Vegas. No one remembered 2 years later who won the Academy Award that year. No one remembers who had the biggest hit show left 2 years ago on Broadway. It's like these things are creative joy for the artist doing them. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it's not going to happen. If I chase a dream and control it and manipulate it, like Chris Martin in Coldplay, they did an album called the prior album to XY. They were given millions of dollars to make an album and they over worried about it. They perfected it. They sat on it. They manipulated it. They wrote songs with no spirit. And the album failed miserably, didn't make any money. The next album was their biggest selling of all time. And he said, I let the force work through me. The force. I call it force God, you can call it love.
That's so hard to do.
Force of creativity. Let go. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to let go. I was reading something. In fact, I was sharing this with another friend of mine this morning. But I've been reading this book called Invisible Acts of Power by Carolyn, how do you say it? Mace?
Carolyn Mace, Myss. I know it
Yeah,
sounds
I always say it wrong, so thank you for that. But anyway, this is a very old book, and I just have never read it. It's been on my shelf forever. But one of the things that that came up that I said that I was talking about was so profound, and it says, "Heaven gives you chances to see how much of your spirit remains imprisoned by yesterday's choices and consequences. Your intuition can help you transcend the fog of tribal programming and assess people and situation in the present, unhampered by past outmoded associations and beliefs. Your mind will produce reasons, emotional scar tissue, and a litany of your personal history's positive and negative experiences, while your intuitive sense will evaluate the energy of the moment, staying in the present. Ultimately, you want to treat each opportunity as a potential new beginning."
Oh, I love it. Yes, you can start your whole life over right this minute. Every moment's a fresh renewal.
Yes.
And that's what I think the resurrection was about. It's about come back to life. Come back to life is here now. It's enjoying this moment. And look how beautiful the world is. When I choose to see the beauty, and it's activated by gratitude. Rex Sykes and I always talk about the activator. I wanted to say hi to Rex Sykes, a friend of mine on Facebook, whom I wanted to have on the show last year, but we're going to try to get him on this coming week, hopefully. He's really into consciousness and reprogramming the mind. He uses NLP and lots of other beautiful ways to see the present reality. But anyway.
But this all takes, and I mean, this is what I've learned in the past 5 years. because everybody knows that I went through some very tragic situations like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And was left broken, sad, even though I was in recovery, even though I had a website called Godshots, even though I believed in God, even though I had all those things, we're still human and we still go through those very down, emotional, sad times. Sometimes of our own making, sometimes of external things. But whenever you get there, you have to, sometimes it's hard to say, I'm even grateful to wake up today.
Oh, I know.
Because it's like everything just gets so overwhelming. But once you walk through that and you push through that, I liken it to climbing a mountain. Like life is like climbing a mountain, right? Like you're on the mountain and you're doing the climb, and the closer you get to the top, the steeper it gets, the harder it is. Your legs hurt, you can't breathe, you don't know what to think. And then there's a ledge, and you can just kind of woosah for a few minutes, maybe a few weeks, a few months, and you breathe and you get some more energy, and then you start the climb again. I don't think we ever arrive. And I think I was always looking at, I'm here, or when am I going to be there? Or when am I going to get there? I don't think I'm ever going to get there.
Yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah, we start saying that at a very young age, right?
Oh
and it's just never, I think it's a journey. I think that life is a journey. I don't think you ever arrive. I think the day that you arrive is the day that you're not here any longer.
Exactly.
I think that you've then arrived, but other than that, we're going to have the trials, we're going to have the joys, and you're exactly right. What do we choose to focus on?
And to me, it's really, I'm not holy yet, or like you said, we're here in a school. I feel like we're here to learn to be less selfish, but mainly less self-centered and less fear-based. And perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love is God. And to me, God is simply love, love, divine love, the love that creates creativity. This universe is beautiful when you really take off the blinders and look up once in a while. And I'm such an asshole for years. I never looked up. I remember, I've told this story many times, but when I was going through a divorce, in sobriety, in recovery, I hit some of my worst things in my life in recovery. But because I was in recovery, I always had that hope, because I'd had so many incontrovertible, mind-boggling, almost supernatural miracles. The first moment I walked in, and I call them God shots because they're scientifically proven to be quantum physics. It's the universe is on your side. And if you look at an electron microscope, there's no solid matter in the universe, not a single bit of solid matter. If you break apart the tiniest atom, it's all energy. So thinking that way, really it is where you put your focus. Your energy goes where you put your mind and your heart and your will and your intention. But so I went through this really horrible divorce where my husband took everything. He stole my money, my life savings. But I was in that marriage for a reason. I knew I was in that marriage for a good reason, to raise his son, who had brittle bone disease and had no mother. He had a birth mother, but she wasn't in his life at that time. And he needed to learn these lessons of love. And I was so grateful to have this kid and my biological son to raise together. And I just started looking at the good, forgiving the one who stole from me. And believe it or not, everything was restored in other mysterious ways. It's another longer story that I'm writing about. But I looked up and I was sitting on the grass one day, crying over this divorce, crying over having to leave my home where I raised the kids. We had this big house in Beverly Hills. And I was losing everything. And my stepson was leaving with his dad on this KISS tour because his dad was taking him away right at the beginning of high school. And my son was 16, and I was like, I don't want to be alone. My son was going to go off to see his father for the summer. And I was feeling haunted, like alone, like grief-stricken, like a knife in my heart. And I went out to sit on the lawn. I just was weeping. And I looked up and I saw that I'm under a fig tree, which I never knew we had. I go, I'm that unconscious. I never knew we had a fig tree, and it never had fruit on it. But by the end of this year of grieving, that tree was full of fruit. My life is fruition by turning it over to spiritual principles. And that's when I saw the butterfly. This butterfly came into my, two big swallowtails flew around me. And Wayne Dyer said that once you're in that higher realm of thought, beautiful things will start seeing beauty again. And I can't tell you what this did for me. I was like an internal plastic surgery. Butterfly is a spiritual metamorphosis,
Yeah,
it
it sure
comes out
is.
of an ugly cocoon and it's hurting it, and it comes out to this beautiful freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual plastic surgery, more or less. And
And
I
it
started
is.
thinking, that's too beautiful. God shocked me from the external. And it was usually, for me, recovery's about the internal, from the inside out. This was from the outside in. I needed that. And I started doing charity work. I went to help some kids, autistic kids in Del Mar. They gave me a free trip to the San Diego Zoo. I was a child all day long at the zoo, all alone, weeping over the end of my marriage. Both kids were gone for the summer. And I took every moment of that day to relish every animal I saw. A gorilla stuck her tongue out at me. A peacock opened his feathers for me. And I'm like, this little toddler and I were giggling and oohing and eyeing, and the parents are walking around jaded, looking at their watches and their cell phones. And I'm a child again. And I said, if I could only see a monarch butterfly, I've never seen a monarch up close. This is going to sound so silly. I drove home from San Diego and a monarch butterfly was waiting for me at the front door on a rose.
Oh,
And I went,
oh,
oh my God, I get it. The universe is interactive. It wants to play with us, but we're never present enough, grateful and appreciative enough
right.
to see the beauty that God would have given me more than that. But I asked for such a little thing. And it was like the universe is interactive. It wants to show off for us, but we've got to be present.
We
You've
do
got to
have to
be
be
here now.
present.
Be grateful for the tiniest thing. Be grateful for the crack in your windshield,
Mm-hmm.
that you
Yep.
have your eyesight. A friend of mine, I told you, lost her eyesight in her 50s and had to learn to walk with a cane. And so she
Well, yeah,
gained
see,
seven.
those things are so, and see, when you mention things like that, I do want to say, because with yesterday being 9/11, to
Yeah,
anybody that lost people in those tragic moments in DC and Pennsylvania and New York, that doesn't go unnoticed by multitudes of people. It may seem like it because it's so far removed, but I sat and thought about, families must go on. Children were born, that were just,
yeah,
the women were pregnant for them when this all happened. So many things happen, and we don't, as humans, understand that all things work together for good,
that's right.
but it doesn't say all things are good.
Right.
And so when there's tragedies, it's really hard. But I think as a human being, I want people to know, if you're struggling with drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever it is that you're struggling with, right? You're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. If
That's
you have sadness over something like a big tragedy, you don't have to be alone. There are people out here that are holding you up in prayer that you don't even know exist, that
that's
God
right.
is putting people on my heart that I'm praying for. Prime example for right now, too, besides the 9/11 thing that was this week, but that terrible tragedy with those two hockey players that got hit, and the two wives were pregnant and they died, and the sister was getting married. And then when you read the whole entirety of it, the man that did it was drunk.
Right. Oh my God, that's
And
right.
so that family, whatever family that is, whether he had a family, lived with a family, whatever it may be, they also are undergoing just tragedy. And so it's people like that, like when I see things like that or read things like that, like I immediately go into prayer for those people. And I believe it's very powerful. And I know we've discussed this before, but even Alexander, who is a neurosurgeon, um, and right now, because I just caught myself off guard, I can't remember the name of his book that he wrote, but his name was Eben Alexander.
Oh, even Alexander. Yeah.
And I forget the name of what his book was, but he talked about when he, for 7 days, was so close to death, and because of the meningitis that he had.
Right.
And he had those spiritual experiences that he came back and he wrote about. And one of the things that he said when he was ascending out of his body, it sounded like muffled groans or something like that he was hearing as he was going up. And then he had his talk with, I don't know if it was Christ, God, who it was, but he talked, and they said, you're going back. because of what you do for a living, you will be a credible witness to what truly happens. This is not something that you just made up in your head. And as he was coming back into his body, he clearly understood that what he thought was moaning and groaning were actually people in deep prayer for him.
Wow.
And those prayers, he said the prayers stabilized him through that journey. So it's so important. And we don't know how important half of this stuff is, really.
Prayer is the invisible, to me, prayer is the invisible transfer of love to another. And I actually, whenever someone's in trouble or I hear of a child suffering or children feeling depressed, or after that horrible school shooting recently, I sit and I hold the children up, or anybody who's suffering, or my friends, anyone who comes to my heart and mind. And not in a weird, not in a begging and woeful way, but in a way to see them through God's eyes, which is courageous, triumphant, surviving, resilient, having strength, having joy, having love, being able to get through it. It's like you don't want to see them suffering. I think it's the way we see people that lifts them up. Pray with thanksgiving. You know what I mean? It's not like begging some anthropomorphic being in the sky. It's seeing them the way we are all made. It's all good all the time.
Yes, I agree with that.
Oddly enough, it's good. Like there's a tapestry and we don't know the big picture on the other side. Down here, we see these threads woven in and out. Some are dying, some are gone forever. These threads are woven to a prettier picture. And it's kind of like a metaphor for, we don't know the whole story yet.
No, we don't. We don't. And we don't. And I know that I was reading a book and I can't remember the name of it, but somebody was talking to God the way that I talk to him, which is kind of straightforward and asking like really tough questions, which I know I probably shouldn't. But this person in the book was doing the same. Like, we passed a man that was in quicksand. We could have helped him. You wouldn't allow it. What was the problem? Why did that man have to die? Why did you let him die in the quicksand? Why couldn't we get him out? You're like asking God this. And God says, because you don't know what that man was going to do if he was released from that quicksand. These family members over here were going to be massacred because he was on his way to do that, right? To commit evil, and he was stopped. And so we never know. Like when my grandmother taught me this, God rest her soul, that when a slow car is in front of me, instead of becoming like road raging, just to step back and know it's my guardian angel keeping me from something I shouldn't be.
Right. That's a good way to look at it.
And so when I think of that, I can become grateful. I'm just like, okay, you're my guardian angel, got it. I just got to be a little calm here. So, and all of that kind of stuff, and it all leads into godshots. And I don't know right now, it seems like there's a lot more happening in our world with godshots and people talking about it and stuff like that. But there's also a lot more rocking and rolling happening in our world.
Speaking of which, I don't know if you heard, we had a massive earthquake this morning. To me, it felt it was bigger than I was on a 7 a.m. 12-step meeting, taking a cake, and I was like, suddenly this huge dresser we have in the other room, and I was sitting in my bed, and it started like it was a long earthquake. I mean, we're close to Thousand Oaks, so it's 5.1. Malibu, Thousand Oaks. We're up in the hills near Santa Clarita. But the Northridge quake was the biggest one I've ever been in. Everything cracked and burned and fell, and my bed jumped across the entire room. But this was a big one. So rocking and rolling.
Today? That happened today?
Yeah, just this morning.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Did not know that. They're having a hurricane in Louisiana. I want to hold good thoughts for my friends there. Ruben, I hope your family's okay. And all my good friends in Louisiana and the Gulf states. So yeah, we don't know what life is. We're here. And acceptance is my favorite prayer. Accept whatever's going on in the moment without resisting, fighting, controlling. Doesn't mean that you don't stand up for right, because evil triumphs when good men do nothing. But sometimes the softer way. It was interesting. I heard a podcast recently by Mark Sappenfield. He's a Jewish man, the editor of the Christian Science Monitor, which is one numerous Pulitzer Prizes for being the most objective, honest, truthful news site. It's actually a newspaper. And he said, in Christ's time, Jesus went through a lot of political turmoil, and no one knows this about Judah in those days. The Sadducees and the Pharisees were fighting all the time, and they were trying to bait Jesus into arguments. And he just kept saying, love one another, just love one another. He didn't want to get baited. And they were all arguing over the afterlife and what happens if that woman takes my inheritance and she's an adult,
Yeah.
And he just kept seeing his fellow man as good. And I'm guilty of labeling people sometimes as evil or bad or Nazis because they're believing a certain political thing. And I go, what am I doing? They're not two-dimensional beings. We're all three-dimensional beings. I'm sorry my voice is so hoarse. I've had this kind of residual thing from COVID, which I'm believing will be solved through prayer. I do believe that, in addition to a little bit of cough syrup. But I don't want to give I don't want to give a lot of power to disease, dis-ease, or illness.
Right.
It's kind of like tempting me to believe in it a lot. And I do all the regular vaccinations and stuff, but I don't want to give disease power. So even when I say I'm, sober, I'm grateful today to be recovered. That's what I say.
Yes, absolutely. Whatever works. Like I said, there's multiple ways to get there, but as long as you're on a path which is leading you spiritually, then you're headed the right direction. It's just raising you up. And I feel right now that a lot of people are coming forward. Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you. Oh my. So, and I did not have any idea about this. So 7 years ago, you ready for this story? This will tell the audience how much of a hardhead I am. Okay, because I can be. So 7 years ago, when I first started Godshots and the website and all of that type of thing, and I was getting all these big deals, I was on a work call with a woman from Florida. Now, I don't remember anything about the work call except the conversation bent towards spiritual things and God, and that was that. And so she's like, what do you think of Kabbalah? I'm like, I don't think anything about it. I said, the only thing I know about it is Madonna has done it, because I didn't know that, right? So I was like, okay. And she goes, have you ever thought about reading the Zohar? I'm like, I don't even know what a Zohar is.
I don't even.
And so she goes, well, how about if I send it to you? This was 7 years ago. I said, sure, if you want. Thanks for the talk and thanks for working, and talk to you later. Bye. Right. A couple of days go by and I get a shipment, seriously, on my front porch that weighed like 100 and some pounds. Right. And in it was books. Like it looked like the Encyclopedia Britannica, like all these books, 27 entire books. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, what is this? And on the side, it said Zohar. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what this is. And so they were all wrapped in cellophane. They're beautiful. They're burgundy with gold on the edges and beautiful. And I put them on the shelf, and that's where they've stayed for 7 years. Right. Yeah. I opened one of them just to see, and I just picked a random number and opened it. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what this is, because it was written like in a different language, English and all this stuff. And I said, I don't know. Anyway, long story short, for you may already know this, but for anybody that doesn't. So not too long ago, about a month ago, I looked at those books in my office and I'm like, there's something pulling me to these books. I don't even know what this is, right? So I started researching. Here's the long and short of it, okay? Kabbalah is basically something that digs into the Torah, to the first 5 books of the Bible. You probably know about this, right? Which I did not. And so the Zohar is like 26 books. It's basically the cliff notes for the Torah. And it tells you all about the Torah in 27 books. It's quite amazing. And it's written in Aramaic, subtitled with English, the whole entire book, because they say Aramaic is very important, right? And so I'm now reading this, starting to follow and understand what's happening here. And I'm like, what a gift. And it was so funny because I was sitting in my chair in my office and I was like, this is such a gift. Like, it tells you this is very powerful information. So don't take it lightly, right? because it carries good and evil. So be careful with these books. And I'm like, this is pretty incredible. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what a gift. And I swear to you, I heard God say, well, it took you long enough. 7 years. You would think that that's my humanness. Like God will give me a gift and I'll just set it aside. And so it's kind of like AA. I mean, if you get the privilege of being offered a chair in AA, at least try it. Don't throw it away before you see what it's about. You know, that was like getting a diamond ring in a bag that's full of poop. I mean, you don't want to look for the ring, but if you go in, it's the same thing with AA. It's not real attractive, but when you get in there are pearls everywhere, right?
My favorite quote, I think it's by Varieties of Religious Experience, a famous author, what's his name? And it says, nothing will keep a man in everlasting ignorance so much as contempt prior to investigation. It's like people who think they know it all. I want to stay curious because I do not know it all, but I'm really curious about life. I get so excited about the idea that I can actually choose to feel good, choose to change my grumpy assholishness, choose to be less selfish, and it actually is a gift back to me. You know, we're born a little selfish. Come on, we're born to be survival of the fittest, all that, but there's a higher realm we're supposed to be living in, or we wouldn't be human. We're not giraffes. We're not lions. We're here with these brains, and sometimes the brains are very primitive, and we're in our lower nature. But when I'm in my higher nature, I'm thinking of you first, or what I can do to help others. I would never want to hurt anybody. I don't ever want to hurt anyone. And I used to be so, even that's a form of self-centeredness, though, when you think you're almost too approval seeking. There's a balance there, you know?
Well, you know what, you say you don't ever want to hurt anybody. And, you know, I just had a situation at the university. And, you know, I'm an assistant dean of a very massive university. So there's a lot of different groups and people and curriculum assessment and all this kind of stuff, and courses being redesigned and students complaining, just a bunch of stuff. And something wasn't done to my liking, right? Now, in the seat I sat in, I could have some say over that, right? And as I was getting ready to say something, it came to my brain and it said, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And so, you know what? I just backed off and I thought, I want to be happy. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and let's see where the chips fall.
Restraint, tongue, and pen.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I have learned that over the past 20 years in recovery that I wouldn't have known. Meeting you, being able to do this with you, recovery has made that possible. Having godshots, writing a book, being the assistant dean of a university, having a family, and actually being able to be present and be helpful. It's just amazing stuff. But you know what? Here's the thing with me. I had to live life on the other side and live that entirely selfish, self-absorbed, earthly, drunken life, which I thought was fabulous, right? I thought I thought the day that I had to stop drinking was the day of my death. You might as well just put me in the grave, right? To come to find out that there is a whole nother realm. There are more people. And I'm finding out that there are more people that don't drink than do, really. And the people that don't are the people that get things done.
I know.
They write the books, they make the TV shows, they act in the movies, they're the ones that are getting things done, right? It's the people that like me, like I used to be. Give me about 10 or 12 beers and I was the best at everything in my own head.
Yeah.
I could
sing, for me too.
I could dance, I could do it all, you know. It's like,
it's a dope. Well, actually, what happened when I got sober was I woke up and everything became new again, and I was, oh my God, colors were brighter, taste was better, sex was everything was better. It was like, what was I don't want to numb myself from feelings. I want to feel emotion. I want to cry at a sunset. I want to cry when someone dies and send them love and have compassion. I didn't have a lot of compassion for others let's say, yes, I did, but not like I do now, where I'm a fully balanced human being, and I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. I'm just saying that numbing yourself with alcohol, you take away, you stop feeling because you're so scared of feeling. And
Yeah.
if you just go like, there's another Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun. She says, breathe in the pain and see that it won't kill you. Even the worst thing you can imagine. Breathe in the fear, breathe out love. Breathe in love, breathe out fear. She just says, accept and watch it go by and don't internalize. And I love the Zen saying, pain is inevitable, suffering optional.
Yes. Yes.
We're
And
all going to
that's,
have pain in our lives, but you can choose to suffer or not.
yeah, you can. And that's a whole nother program, because
Yeah.
there are techniques to go through that, because sometimes when you're in it, you can't find your way out of it.
Are
And
you
it's
talking about
okay.
grief recovery or what?
Well, grief, any of it. I mean, when you're in the middle of a bad relationship,
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
or a family affair that is just going south really quickly, whatever, because we all have something, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it, you feel like you're in the darkest, most stuck place ever. Like, I can't get out of here, right?
Yeah.
But you can, and you need to feel free to talk to people about it. That's why when we talk on these shows, I'm always open, and I'm always like, listen, my calling has been to be in the nursing world for the past 40 years. Now, why? I don't know. And as I got my doctorate and from the University of Alabama, and it opened up the whole spiritual realm,
Yeah.
and I help people now with addictions and alcoholism, and it's a passion of mine. And I also treat people like, but I'm finding that there's very few organic brain issues.
Oh, really?
It's a lot of the thought, it's a lot of thinking, it's a lot of for example, somebody can be diagnosed bipolar, but
Mhm.
then you find out they're drinking a fifth of vodka a night. Well, yeah, you're going to look bipolar if you're doing that,
Well, that's it.
right?
I want to ask you about this because you've also done those studies, those cholesterol studies with
Mm-hmm.
with
Yes.
prayer,
Yeah.
with putting thoughts toward, and the Buddhist monks do this all the time too. Their brainwaves change through meditation and prayer.
Sure.
But organic brain issues, what do you think of ADHD, ADD? I feel like a lot of women I know are suddenly diagnosed with that. I may have it, but I don't want to label myself. I love my brain. It pulls together things from all different avenues of interest, and I'm able to formulate things. I love to investigate things. I'm very curious, but I don't like the fact that I don't focus fully on a task to finish, like a long book I'm writing. I had to give up that forcing my will on that and enjoy the process more, what I'm saying. But do you think ADD is real?
I do. I do in certain cases. Yeah, I do.
Organic
And
brain problem or
yeah, I do. I do. I do. I think it's a real problem for some people. Um, there's just chemicals in the brain that aren't working properly, and they need to be, helped with medication, and that medication does help them. Here's the problem. When you have somebody that has the real issue and the medication works and it can stabilize them and they can live a normal, healthy life, right?
yeah.
But then you have people that get put on that medication that don't truly have that, but they appear to have it because
Right.
maybe they're taking drugs, other, illegal drugs, alcohol, whatever it is that they're doing, and it just intensifies everything. And that's why what that drug can do, like that, is one of the reasons why it becomes a big seller on the street.
You're talking about Adderall or speed. I mean, Dexedrine or Adderall, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because for me, I don't want, it cuts my conscious, they were prescribed it and I don't want to take it. It cuts my conscious contact off with the wonder. I'm so excited about life.
Mhm.
I'd rather take longer and have more joy than to just be focused like a
And
machine.
see, and I think that I think personally right now, it used to be back in the day, let's go 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah,
You had one physician that did it all. He
yeah,
could be he could be birthing a baby at 8 a.m. and setting a broken ankle at noon and diagnosing somebody with poison ivy at 4. I mean,
Yeah.
did it all, right? And so you knew your doctor and the doctor knew you. Today, we have such specializations, right? So when you talk about what you're talking about and you get into the psychiatric realm of things, there are so many specializations when it comes to that. Like, you know, what kind of therapy are you going to do? You're going to do talk therapy, you're going to do EDMR, are you going to do constellation therapy? What kind of therapy is going to work best for you?
Right.
And those are the things. When you find the right therapy for whatever is causing your issues,
Yeah.
that's when the growth really happens.
So
And
to
you
me, the 12-step program is like group therapy where you get to vent and confess some deep, dark stuff, and people support you with love. And to me, that is like free therapy.
But I
And
would caution, may I caution? This is what
yeah,
I'm going to say. It's not the healthiest people that go to
well, that's
recovery at times, okay? And so that's why we have sponsorship. So you have
yes,
one person that you trust, that you work with, that you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets to.
right.
You know, I had to go through the experience of sharing what, I mean, I was sharing what I was going through in my home life in meetings, and there was a predator there that had actual mental diagnoses of psychosis and grandiose narcissism,
Gosh.
which preyed on that. And that's dangerous, so dangerous. And I had to learn that by going through it. So I caution people that you talk to the right person, you ask the right questions. If something's not working with you, you do something different. You know, like I've been through like 4 different types of therapists to find the one that I landed on that's helping me the most, because my particular issues derive from the family of origin and generational.
Okay. On that point, I've said this before. I really believe alcoholism is trauma-based, not genetic. And that may, I don't really think you're born with a gene of alcoholism. And I've read that, and the AMA doesn't either. A predisposition toward it, they think it's a nebulous. I think it's when you've been neglected or abused in childhood, or you've taken things the wrong way, or some traumatic event. And a lot of us have had, abusive parents.
Exactly. But the one thing that I would say to our listeners, and this is just personal opinion, and that's what it is when it comes to alcoholism, but I've read enough studies, I've seen enough research that there is a predisposition for people that have it in their family. And I would challenge anybody that thinks that they're having problems with this to look at your family genealogy. And if you had a grandfather that was a drunk, or an uncle that was a drunk, if it's on both sides, one side, take a look and see, because it will skip a generation and it will hit certain people and it won't hit others. And here's the thing, when you read, even in the big book, it talks about the way that this disease is broken down, mind, body, spirit, right? And that's why whenever they say 1 is too many and 100 is not enough, if you have that predisposition, that's what's going to happen, and you can't stop it.
I know, it's weird. The first drink is the poison that takes the second drink. Because if you have that first drink, your brain, you're mentally, you're not of sound mind. It's alcohol is getting you high. You're on a drug that then it makes the choice for you, the second drink, and then you're off to the races.
And
that's
see what is so hard about it, and it's like if you listen to Joe and Charlie at all, and they talk about the phenomenon of craving, that is the medical part, that phenomenon of craving. You get the craving because when we boil it down, it's not a drinking problem, it's a thinking problem.
It's a thinking problem. But Darlene, there are people, see, I have a more spiritual angle on genetics that one day we should really dig down deep on that one, because I really believe all is good. Good. There is no opposing force to good.
Yeah,
therefore, a rose can't really give you an allergy. You got to rise above the old beliefs that we're married to our old woundedness, our family history. I really believe we're fresh and renewed in the moment we choose to be. So that's another discussion for another time. But you're a medical doctor, so you're combining both, which is really interesting. We could probably get to an even higher level someday. I
think it would be really nice, and I would like our audience to weigh in on this, but I think it would be nice to actually write a book on this.
I do too.
This topic, because there's a lot of people that question it.
Yeah.
And I have the proof of at least the one study I did
Oh, I
where
love.
prayer changed cholesterol levels. Now, the lipid panels, I should say, lipid panels, because we looked at more than just the cholesterol, but that's pretty amazing.
I've
But
had.
here's the key. It all stemmed back to the anger. And what's anger underlying is fear,
Oh, yes.
right?
Oh, God. Okay. So I heard this amazing healing last week on this podcast about inflammation, and the practitioners, they were doing with a person who had really bad inflammation of the lungs and an inflamed something else, another inflamed heart. There was another inflamed part of the body. And they called up this practitioner to help them, a spiritual practitioner. She said, "Are you inflamed about anything right now? Are you angry?" And he went, "Yes, politics." He was
Oh,
inflamed and he was angry. And he immediately turned off the news and turned to spiritual principles, started to love his neighbor and his enemy as himself. And the inflammation disappeared. Now, there's so much root cause to do with stress. A genetic scientist once told me 93% of all disease begins with stress. Stress is fear, worry, anger, feeling out of control, like you can't control your finances, you're going to go under. And if there's a way to control that, like you said, the mind controls the body, I think. But
right.
how do you stop the mind from thinking?
Well, we
Oh,
have to get from here to here.
yeah,
And that is that's the shortest period, that's the shortest amount of space, but it's the longest journey because you have to start thinking with the heart instead of the head.
oh wow, yeah. I used to
Because
ask a question, where is my heart? Is it in my gut or in my head? Where's my gut? Where's my gut instinct? In my heart or my head? I go,
no,
well,
it's definitely it's the intuitive knowing is in the heart.
absolutely.
But the brain tries to give you your rational, that's the ego trying to give you the rational thoughts of why that's not okay.
That's it.
And most of the time for me, that's winning out
Me
because I'm
too.
scientific
Shut up.
and I've done so much research that it's like, okay, well, that can't possibly be what I'm really thinking or feeling, right? But it is. And when I go with those moments, it just works.
Yeah, me too.
It just works. And I get some of my best God shots. And, I don't know. I would challenge anybody listening today that just has questions or would like to have an email chat or anything like that. I'm more than happy to talk with people. That's what I do.
I'll put our email at the end of the show, but I wanted to say that be still and know that all is well. Be still and know, that.
If I could turn my computer around, which I probably can't, that's the big thing on my wall. Be still. Be still.
So that, I love that. And that meditation, before you have a decision to make, or you're anxious over, which way to go, which direction, stop. Do a quick meditation. Meditation is listening to the higher realm, to God's thoughts, listening to your heart, what it really wants.
Right.
And then you make the decision based on after being still. You can't do anything in a state of panic. I've learned that the hard way.
That is very
A
true.
woman almost had a car accident, but she had this feeling that she should not stop at the stop sign coming up. A very spiritual woman, Carolyn Mace. She told this story.
Oh,
She said, we were driving and I had this feeling that I should just go through the stop sign and not stop. And sure enough, thank God she did, because the truck went barreling through. She would have been killed if she'd stopped at that stop sign. I don't know exactly how it worked, but there was it's on one of her YouTube tapes.
that's really awesome.
She was
That's
so
really
in
awesome.
tune,
Yeah. And you know what? I hate to end our podcast, but I have another meeting in like 20 minutes. And
I love you.
I love you too. But if you can hang back for a minute, that would be great.
Yeah, we're going to start doing this regularly and we're going to have guests on again. So stay tuned. I'll put out the schedule and you can reach us at godshots.org@gmail.com. GODSHOTSORG@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
week.